Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luis. I work for IBM. And at IBM, we run a project called Big Data University, which is pretty much a website to offer free education on big data and data science and everything else related to data, pretty much. So I'm going to start off talking a little bit about me, just to present myself to the community. Again, my name is Luis. I'm an engineer at IBM. And I'm leading the BDU project at IBM. Our team is based in Toronto, Canada, but I was born in Brazil. And that's me enjoying a nice summer afternoon in Toronto. Yeah, that's how it looks like. So yeah, now I'm going to talk a little bit about how Big Data University is. It's pretty much, we talk as a community. So usually when people think about an IBM project, they go, OK, so there are people in suits. They're going to try to sell me stuff. But we're not a sales team. We are on technology side, emerging technologies. So we don't know how to sell stuff. Even if we want to, we don't know how to. So our stuff are pretty much free. The courses are free. And we really strive to make a community. So we want to hear the feedback from the people. We organize events, meetups, mostly in the Toronto area. But now we're trying to go worldwide. So we're having events in Asia, Europe, some here in the US as well. And one of the key things about Big Data University is that we follow this philosophy of at your place, at your pace. So all of our courses are pretty much, you just follow it yourself. There's no instruction based. You can take it anytime you want, take as long as you want to finish it. And all of our courses are usually developed by industry experts. So we try to either in-house talents, such as like other IBMers that want to teach about big data and data science. They create course for us, as well as reaching out to other companies to either make a partnership. So for example, we have a R course that has been in partnership with DataCamp. So it's like you do the labs on their environment, but you also access the content at Big Data University. Or we also purchase content from other companies, such as our Scala course that we did in partnership with Lightband, which is the creator of Scala. Again, all of our courses are free. They are made for the community. But you know, when you're talking about IBM free stuff, you kind of give it like, why is it free? You know, you're supposed to be making money out of it. Our idea is that we want to teach skills to people. We want to give people the knowledge. And then when they are skilled, when they have the knowledge, then they'll come back to us and say, hey, I made a course on Big Data University. In there, on your labs, you kind of use this big insight thing that I like it. You know, how can we use it in our company? So our idea is that we spread the knowledge and then just hope that you guys come back to us and like, you know, buy our products pretty much. But no strings attached. You can take the course as you want. And we're always looking for contributors, either making courses or just running local meetups or just come and talk to us if you are interested in help us out or just getting your content somewhere to host it. Some numbers about Big Data University. We have more than 60 courses right now in our website. These numbers are kind of hard to tell because they're transitioning, and that's the whole point of this presentation. We're transitioning from Moodle to Open edX. So these numbers are mostly on the Moodle side, but they're being migrated to Open edX as we progress. We have over 400,000 students registered on the website, more than 1 million course enrollments. So we have a good enrollment ratio there. We also have a nice completion ratio. It goes, usually it gets like to 5%, even more sometimes, of completion. And we're currently deployed in 3 languages. So bigdatauniversity.com for English. And we launched on china.com.cn and in brazil.com.br. I'm going to talk about more details about each of them. They kind of make, they're part of the story of Big Data University and how the Open edX relationship went on. This is our team at IBM. So myself and Marcio are mostly responsible for Big Data University. We've been working mostly on that. Grace, responsible for day-to-day operations and stuff like that. Polong and Saeed are data scientists. So they are responsible for community outreach and also developing content for us. Leon's our manager, so he's the boss. So I have to say nice things about him. Antonio, he manages more of our social side and content. So he writes for a technical blog. He do SEO stuff. And Raul is kind of the business side of Big Data University. He reaches out to people, to other businesses and stuff like that. So does Rav. So Raul and Rav are kind of the business side of that. And pretty much the other guys are developers. They help out on Big Data University whenever they can, but they're mostly focused on other jobs. Marcio and I are the ones that are more focused on Big Data University. But everyone jumps in whenever it's needed. So when I was presenting the team, I kind of separate people into kind of these 3 areas. I think that's fairly common for any learning website, any learning environment. So at one point, you have the educators, which are people that create the courses, they create content. On the other side, you have the business people that are the ones that are reaching out to partners, trying to get more people to join, stuff like that. And then you have the developments, which are the technical people that kind of implement stuff and then make everything runs nice and smooth. I'm on that side of the triangle, so I'm a developer. Not good at speaking, not good at selling, not good at anything, but you know, I try my best. So just quick quiz, like who identifies better with as educators? Okay, business and development. Okay, nice. So it's a very even distributed. That's good. But I'll be focusing more on the development because that's my area. So I want to talk a little bit about all the areas. Even though I'll focus more on development, I'm going to start with the educators part. One thing we do at Big Data University, we try to make short courses. And that's why probably we have a lot of enrollments and completion rates, because on the online universe, there are so many distractions, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. You know, it's like a concentration destruction machine. You know, you get off rails very quickly. So we try to make the course shorter and interesting, very strict to the point of the course. We don't do like, we try not to make very generic courses. We try to make them very engaging and very focused on an area, and also give them labs so people can do it in practice. We also have learning paths on our website that's kind of guiding through students into our catalog of courses. As I mentioned before, I have over 60 courses, and it's kind of hard to say where do I start, where do I go next. So that's what learning paths are great for, to guide students through their journey. The 5x5 rule of thumb is something that Raul came up. It was sort of a framework for our courses. So the idea is that we have 5 courses per learning path. Each course has like 5 modules or 5 steps. Each step has 5 videos and so forth. So 5 is kind of a magical number for us, and we try to organize our courses like that to keep them short and focused to the point. And also, as I mentioned before, we try to partner with industry as much as possible, both in content, you know, acquiring content from others, as a partnership as well, hosting our content somewhere else or hosting someone else's content in our platform, and as well as events such as hackathons, meetups, stuff like that. On the business side, we're starting to actually deploy what we call private portals. That's for enterprise and companies that are they want to train their staff, their employees into big data and data science. So the idea here is that we'll create a separate area that only, you know, with very strict access control. So only the employees of that company will be able to access it. And in there, the employers can sort of create their own learning path. So we give them all the content, all of our course, and then they pick and choose whatever they want, and they group them together however makes sense to them. So because each business is kind of very different from the other, so they have different needs, so they want to teach different stuff. So you can assemble your learning paths depending on how, what kind of skills you wanted to give to your employers. There are a lot of technical challenges there. So for example, businesses have firewalls. They sometimes block YouTube, and so it's been fun. We also have what's called the Video Ambassador Program. That's where that's part of the community building part. It's when we reach out to different entities, either universities, companies, or even like just a group of people that are interested in making part of our Big Data University community. And we help them organize events. We help them teach our courses. So we provide all the material, all the our knowledge of how to do this stuff. So we gave it to them, and then they just run it locally on their own, city or their own university, stuff like that. Another partnership we made was with the UN, so the United Nations. This year, or was it last year? I think it was last year. They released their global goals, so 15 global goals, and we are part of that, trying to spread out the message. So our idea is that using data science and data, you can actually make the world a better place. So there's a whole section of our website dedicated to that, and some upcoming events. If you guys are interested in make sure to check the website. So that was pretty much it for all that part that I'm not the best stuff to talk about. So now to the fun stuff, at least in my perspective. I want to talk a little bit about the Big Data University stack evolution. So where did it come from, and how did it get to the current point that we are? So Big Data University started around 2010, 2011, I think. It was called DB2 University, actually, at the time. And the idea was, DB2 was widely used in the industry, but startups don't go and say, oh, I think I'm going to use DB2 for a project. Like, it's not going to happen. For any reasons, mostly because of cost, and you have to sign contracts after that. But at that time, IBM was releasing a free version of DB2 called DB2 Express C, and we needed people to be trained at it. We need people to know how to use it so they would actually use it. So the website became very simple deployment. It was just a Moodle website running DB2, of course, because preach what you have to kind of do what you're preaching. And it had a simple PHP front end, and it kind of looked like that. It was something, and it was always sort of like a side project. So we call it an IBM initiative. We don't say it's an IBM project because technically it's not. It's something that IBM sponsors. IBM allows us to do it in our work time. And IBM contributes material to that, but it's not actually an IBM thing. And so it's kind of like growing by itself. We didn't put much effort, but the community started growing, and then we see the registrations going up, and I say, oh, maybe there's something there. So when I joined IBM in 2013, one of my first assignments was kind of improve the website. So first thing we worked on, we put like a WordPress front end of the Moodle. So it was more dynamic, was easier to change stuff. Anybody could. We don't need to be a programmer to change the website. And that's kind of how we stay for a few years. And when I change it, that's how it looked like. You have a new design, stuff like that. But on the learning side, the LMS we're using, the Moodle, still looked like this. It's kind of not very inviting. It was just a group of links, not very interactive, not very motivating for people. They have to click through the videos, and it was not the best experience for the students. So we started looking for alternatives around the internet, and then, we said there must be something better out there. We were looking for it, and then we found edX, and so we make a really quick comparison between Moodle and edX, see like if it were worth to do the change. Here's our quick analysis of Moodle. Again, I'm not trying to say Moodle is a bad product. It's actually a great product. It's been working by amazing people. It's been out for a while. But it's very good for, we found it to like, university courses and high school courses where you have like the instructor right there. You have the traditional classes. So it's great for storing content. So if you do a lecture, you put your slides there, each students can download. But it's not that great for delivering content. It's not that engaging. It's not as motivating. It is a more mature. It's been for a while. It's been field tested a lot. It's easier to deploy because of the architecture is more monolithic. So it's just one big piece that you just say, there you go. And it has some nice plugins and themes that you can extend. Now, on the other hand, the Open edX side, you have a much better learning experience for your users. You have a great course authoring tool. The studio is very easy to use. We had our courses creator. They were pretty much quickly up to speed with the tool. It was a very modular architecture, which for us was great because we were kind of stuck in the stack that we had before, and we wanted to change it, make it like easier, more modular. And it has some nice features, microsites, Xmodules. That's something that we are that looked very interesting for us at the time. We didn't know exactly what it was, but we say, oh, sounds interesting. So we decided to make the change. And as we start looking at it, we go, OK, this is what we have right now. This is what we have to go to. And we're like, OK, this is not going to be as easy as we thought. But let's go, baby steps. So first thing we did was launch in Brazil. When we launched it in Brazil, we did edX directly. We didn't even try to do Moodle. We just said, OK, we're starting there. Let's start fresh. So this was back in 2014, I believe. And 14 or 15? 14, yeah. And we started with Birch. It was just a normal, a small deployment, just to see how it goes. Everything was going well. Then we decided to launch in China as well. Then, we had some problems in there, like YouTube doesn't work. They had to have different social medias, but it kind of worked. So it was a nice experience for us. This is what it looks like behind the scenes. So instead of running just the full stack directly, which is the Open edX team don't recommend as production, so we kind of break it down a little bit. So we have our Open edX core. So the platform is in one server, and then we separated the MySQL and Mongo into different servers. And then we had what we call the common cluster. I think it was somewhere in the playbooks, this name. We kind of kept it. So common cluster pretty much are the stuff that don't change that often. So Elasticsearch, Memcached, XQ, these things that are fairly stable. We just put it in the same server, link it together. And then the workers that kind of do the background job, we kind of separate them so we can scale them. So if we need more workers, we can just bring up new ones. So these were our goals when we started this. So we want to improve the learner's experience and the engagement that they have with the courses. We want a scalable architecture so we don't get stuck to our monolithic this architecture we had before. And we also want to automate our deployments. So it's part of the scalable architecture. You have to be able to bring down servers on demand. And if something goes wrong, you should be able to quickly bring up a new instance and just leave it there in place, and everything works fine. So that's what was our goal. We were making progress towards it. And then this happened. This is a IBM press release. This was roughly a year ago. I think it was, yes, June 15th. So a year ago, IBM announced that they would train 1 million data scientists. And most importantly, this was during Spark Summit last year. So then I was be training 1 million data scientists. And most importantly, I actually made to the press release. So you can see my picture there. And the second thing that was most important was that Big Data University was actually a big part of it. So it's listed right there as one of the partners that IBM is working on to reach the goal of training 1 million data scientists. So when we got the news, we kind of have to add another big goal there. We need to get to 1 million registrations. Our manager just say, this is our goal now. This is what you get to do. And it kind of fit to us because in order to do that, we kind of have to get to all the other three as well. So, you need to improve the user experience. We need to improve the user engagement. We need to have a scalable architecture to be able to withstand the load. And we need automated deployment to be able to support our architecture. So it kind of fits to our goals, but in the beginning it was kind of scary, I must admit. It's a big number, but we've been working on that. So when we are doing this process, we kind of say, OK, we have a small team and a big goal. We need help. So we reach out to this company called Andela. Andela is a company that works mostly on Africa. They try to find brilliant students. They train them, and they offer their service for companies. So we got first students to help us out. They were being managed by Andre. And they've been helping us ever since during this migration to Open edX. So this is our goal. We had to reach that architecture and be able to reach our 1 million goal. And also, not only the architecture had to change, but also all of our data, all of our content had also to be migrated from Moodle to Open edX. So how did you do it? And that's why you guys are here. Right? So let's just jump in directly to that. So when we were doing the migration, we follow a few steps. So first step was just straight up dig into the code and see where we are heading. Because when you read stuff, it kind of sounds all nice and flowers everywhere. But when you go to the code, then things are a little more complicated. So first, and again, this is just how we did it. It's not like an official Open edX thing. I don't work for Open edX, so I cannot recommend this way. But it's just saying this is how we did. It kind of worked for us so far. So we started with the roles and playbooks. So on the edX repository, there is the playbooks, the configuration repository. And in there, there's a folder called playbooks, and then edX East. And this is what the edX team used for their production environment. So I figure if it's good for them, it might be good for us. So that's where I recommend you to start. Look at the playbooks, see how things are broken down from this scary chart to the actual implementation. Then check the variables, because they have variables everywhere. If you look at the files, you're going to see a lot of these YAML files defining all sorts of variables of all sorts of configurations. These variables, it's interesting to keep in mind that they have kind of two roles mainly. One is configuration. So database password, database hostname, stuff like that are mostly configurations. But they also have feature flags, which enable or disable some parts of the website. So the core search, for example, is a feature. OAuth provider, all this kind of stuff are mostly configured on the variable. So it's important for you to understand what they are, what they do, what they affect, and also how they relate to each other. So that's another step, is how to understand how each component on the crazy chart talks to each other and how they're related. And that goes back to the variable, because, for example, some of the variables, they have to have the same value. So on your comment service on your platform, you need to have the same key, the same API key as on your forum. Otherwise, they won't be able to communicate. So that's another step, a big step that you need to understand, is like how the variables relate to each other. And bottom line, just how the platform works. What happens when users access this part of my platform? What happens when they click play on the video? Stuff like that. It's really important for you to really go down to the code and see how it goes. It's very hard in the beginning, but I promise it gets easier. So the next step is, after you get familiarized with all the code and how the platform works, you can start doing your own job. You can start thinking of how you can architecture your deployment, because there's no recipe, there's no one solution for all. It kind of depends on how much load you want, how many users you're going to have, how much cost you can take, how much resources you have available. So all that you have to take in consideration when you're creating architecture. And also which components you want, because Open edX is like a huge thing, but it's very modular. So you can just pick and choose the parts you need. So for that, we kind of came up with this architecture, more or less. So we broken down the databases, and then our platform running on a server, and then our front end still WordPress, and then our workers, and then XQ. So that's how we decide to go. Pretty much each box is a server, and then whatever's inside is what's deployed there. But as we're doing that, we kind of figure out that, well, there's a lot of work. We have a huge load, expect a huge load. We're going to have to bottleneck on our databases for sure. We need to make a cluster. We need to manage the cluster. It was kind of getting to a headache. So around the same time, IBM bought a company called Compose, which is formerly known as Mongo HQ, if I'm not mistaken. And what they do is they provide databases as a service. They say, cool, that's exactly what we need. We need somebody to manage our databases. So we look at their tech catalog, and they had like Mongo, they had Elasticsearch, they had RabbitMQ, a lot of stuff that we needed. So we that's the other point. So take advantage of software as a service as much as you can. They're usually more expensive, but they might be able to save you a lot of headaches. I know that edX runs on Amazon, so they use a lot of Amazon service. So if you can, and if you have the means, then I think you should use it. For us at IBM, we have SoftLayer, which is our platform as a service, and so we try to use whatever we can to make sense. So we change our deployment a little bit. We look at the catalog and say, well, they don't have MySQL, so let's use Postgres. So we just swapped it out. The stuffs in blue are the ones we're using from Compose. Elasticsearch, they do provide, but it's a different version that's not compatible to OpenEdX, unfortunately. So we have to run our own cluster, but that's fine. You're going to save a lot of headache in the future, I'm pretty sure. Managing backups, performance, stuff like that. Next step, then you start doing stuff. Now you just have your plan, you have all your architecture, you understand the code, then you start coding. My recommendation is that you start by forking the configuration playbook, the configuration repo, and start creating your playbooks, your roles, your variables. Now that you have your architecture, you know how to group stuff, then you can start doing it with more confidence. Oops, what did I do? Oh, yeah, that's my presentation. So that's what we did. We pretty much create a folder inside the configuration repo and just PDU and just put our stuff there. Then I think that's kind of is a good idea to have. Later on, you deploy your server, so you bring up, as many servers as you need, and then you start building your inventory file. And Ansible has this nice thing in the inventory where you can create groups of servers. So that's sort of how our inventory looks like. Groups are the ones in square brackets. And usually each server kind of have two properties, a role and a environment. So we have our edX app either on staging or production. And depending on the environment, the variable values are going to change. And you can target those values with a folder called group vars. So inside the group vars, if you just follow the same name as your group, you can set the variables there, and then they will apply in runtime only to that server. So it's a very nice way to organize your variables. So next step, to organize your project structure. So you created all your playbooks, you created roles. But your variables, they usually have, they will have like sensitive information, like database IPs, database passwords, all this kind of stuff. What we do is we create a folder at the same level as the configuration repo called configuration secure, where we keep all the sensitive stuff. And then we use symlinks to kind of link them back to the root directory, and then that's where we run the Ansible commands. If you want to go one step further, you can use Ansible Vault to store this kind of stuff. And then next step is to actually migrate data. One important question that you have to answer is what do you want to migrate? This is how Moodle database schema looks like, and there's a lot of tables there. So it was very important for us to actually pick what we're going to migrate automatically, what we can migrate manually, and what we can just leave it there. So there are pretty much three things that are most important: the user information, courses, and user progress inside the course. So let's start with the user migration. On Moodle, you have this table called user. Depending on the prefix, usually it's MDL by default, but something user, where I have a lot of columns about the user information, so username, first name, last name, stuff like that. On the Open edX side, if these values are kind of stored in two tables on your MySQL database. So auth user stores the user ID, the username, email, they joined, last login. And the user profile stores the name, language, city, and country. So we have to break this, the Moodle table, into two tables when we migrated. So these fields went to that table, and then these fields went to this table. And we also created an intermediate table where we kind of relate the two. So it just stores the ID of the Moodle, the ID that the user had on Moodle, to the ID that they have now on Open edX. Just troubleshooting if you need, or just if you forgot something, we can just always relate back to our previous database very easily. So that was migrating the users. As far as the other two, we just didn't do it. It was just too much work. It's a completely different structure. It was just easier to just go and manually migrate the courses. And it was also an opportunity for us to review our content. So as we are migrating the courses, we're actually going through all the materials, make sure it's all OK, updating stuff, making better use of Open edX features, so all the blocks for all the X blocks that are available. So it's a good opportunity to kind of refresh the course and make it better. As far as users' progress, again, we're going to migrate some of it, like the certificates and which course they finish. But we're not going to migrate like fine-grained details, like which videos have they watched or where they are. It's just too much work. So after you migrate the data, you start to customize it. The Open edX layout is nice, but you want to have your brand. You want to have your color scheme and everything. So start building your theme. There's been a lot of improvements on the compressive theme. There's still work to be done, I believe, but it's very good. At this point, you cannot customize everything directly on the theme, so you might need to change the platform. My recommendation here is that you try to avoid changing the platform as much as you can. Just for upgrades, it's just easier. You don't lose stuff. You don't get conflicts, stuff like that. And on your theme, make it as specific as possible. So when you're building a theme, you pretty much copy the file that you have in the platform over your theme. And I would recommend just remove everything that you don't need. Just leave what you need there, because it's just easier to maintain later on. Another thing that we did, and it worked very well for us, was create a marketing site. It's defined by this variable here, enable. This is a feature flag, by the way. And what it does is it kind of changes the home of your website. So whenever you just go to www, whatever, / you will redirect you to your marketing site. And in there, you have the opportunity to do whatever you want. In our case, we did WordPress, but it can be whatever you want. And it is very good because it gives you opportunity to create more content and give it more, more customized for your users. And we actually studied how edX.org works, and we kind of figure out they kind of do something like that. So, again, if it works for them, then I guess it's good enough for us. And so where we are now and what we want to do next. So last week, we worked really hard to make it available, our edX deployment, our Open edX deployment. So if you go to the website right now, you'll still be able to access the Moodle. That's our main, still our main LMS, but there's a nice banner that you can go to our beta website that is actually running Open edX, so you can take a look there. If you had an account before, you should be able to log in normally. We've already migrated you. If not, then just create an account in the beta. I would say is better. But yeah, go check it out. If you have any feedbacks, there's a support tab on the right-hand side. There's actually support and feedback, so just feel free to let us know what you think and if you can improve anything. what's left? There's a lot of work left to do. That's why it's still a beta. We wanted to make a production, just like go and switch directly, but there's still work to do. So first one is to make it actually scalable. So we have a distributed architecture, but in order to really make it scalable, there's a lot of work to do. So the main thing is file uploads, for example. By default, it will go to your server. And that's not scalable because if you put a new instance, then that one will not have your server. So you need a data layer on all that kind of shared between all of your servers. So we don't have that yet. That's what we're working on. The code branch strategy, it's basically how you want to keep up with the Open edX commits. When we are starting, we're kind of struggling between should we go to named release or should we just go to the release branch and just get the latest stuff. We kind of chose to name release just to have more regular updates, but something we are thinking about, how to incorporate bug fixes and stuff like that from the main repo into our platform. Another thing is to add more components. Pretty much we have a basic deployment, but we want to add the analytics service, which we didn't deploy yet. We want to put everything that's new, like the Notes API and everything that's great about edX, we want to incorporate into our website. Next step is to just dominate the world. Pretty much we want to spread out. We are in Brazil and China. We want to go to as much country as possible and just deploy everywhere. And then you have internationalization, multi-language support, and all these technical issues that we need to figure out. And later we want to start contributing back more. We're just starting out, so we're just learning. But as we learn, our idea is to actually contribute back whatever we learn and whatever we can help out with. And I think, yeah, so if you want to learn more about BDU and the business side, there's going to be a panel tomorrow that's going to be hosted by Nate, the guy that was speaking before. So tomorrow, 1:15 at the Bishop Auditorium. If you want to go, I'll be there as one of the panelists. And that's it for me. Thank you.
One quick question.
Yes.
How long did it take to do the migration?
So the migration itself is pretty quick. We just take a few minutes because we made it from start to make it efficient because we had a lot of data to migrate. But in order to get to the point that we actually had the scripts to do the migration, it took like probably 3 months or so, to learn the database structure from the source, database structure from the destination, and how we can efficiently move data between them. It took a couple of months.
Thank you.
Yes.
Cost-wise, would you say you're finding Open edX to be a better choice than Moodle, or the other way around?
Cost-wise, I would say Moodle would be cheaper because it's a simpler architecture. As I say, it's a monolithic architecture. So it's a big thing that you just deploy in one server. In one hand, it's kind of hard. Your only option is to scale up, meaning if you're hitting performance issues, then you just need a bigger machine, and it kind of stuck to that. But on the Open edX, your initial cost is kind of expensive because you deploy all these different servers. But it can be smaller servers and more efficient servers, so you can do like auto-scaling and stuff like that. So it really depends on where you're going. Since you're aiming for such a high goal, you're expecting a lot of traffic, being able to scale our infrastructure is very important for us because on the weekend, people don't actually access as much as during the weekday, and then, so yeah, it depends. Anything else?
What version are you guys running now?
Right now we're in Dogwood. Yeah, if you go to beta.bigdangers.com, it's Dogwood. Yes?
What version of Moodle were you running before?
So that's an interesting question. We were stuck at Moodle 2.0 because in the beginning when we decided to do a DB2 database, we created a DB2 driver for Moodle. And then we kind of stopped maintaining it, so we kind of didn't work with the latest version, and we kind of stuck with that. So yeah, that's actually another reason why we wanted to move to a different LMS. Anything else? Okay, so thank you.